Just say they don't let us go.
Okay.
Welcome to Columbia University's Low Library. Tonight we honor the very best in audio and video journalism.
How'd he hit you?
He punched me.
Work with courage, commitment, context.
We just want to make sure that we have the same as anybody else.
Work that shows the pursuit of truth matters.
This was not a thorough investigation.
And that powerful reporting can make an impact.
How many of you suffered abuse in foster homes?
This is the 82nd Annual duPont-Columbia Awards. I've never really made myself nervous before, but hearing the audio. Anyway, good evening, and it's great to be here. Welcome to the 2024 duPont-Columbia University Awards. I'm David Muir. Thank you for being here tonight, and of course, thanks to my co-host, Audie Cornish of CNN, back behind us here. Audie and I were reminiscing about our shared years in Boston in journalism and how we got our start there at a time when Boston really was in the news quite a bit. Obviously, the roots of a significant part of 9/11 and all the other stories, the big dig, saving Fenway Park. You know, we were sweating talking about Boston deadlines here a minute ago. But great to be with you here tonight, Audie. I did have just a few thoughts before we start this evening's program. And as I said at the top, it really is an honor to be here with you all. And what I wanted to share with is that in my view, this awards program, this event tonight, is even bigger than the awards we're about to hand out. Because I think that we all here in this room recognize the challenges that we all face right now in journalism. You don't need me to tell you that the truth is being tested every single day in this country and really around the world. Journalists are risking their lives. We have two global conflicts playing out in real time, and often they're not even the lead story, which speaks volumes about the world we're in right now. Here at home, we're in a country deeply divided. We have disinformation peddled as the truth. We have artificial intelligence and all that it will bring. And I was thinking this afternoon of what I could share with all of you in this room that would be hopeful. You know, what is the antidote to all of this? And I really do believe this, that the one thing we do have that can cut through all of this, not necessarily solve it, but cut through it, is journalism, the facts, a careful, thoughtful, brave portrait of the truth. Because we all in this room know how overwhelming this time is. We're entering this presidential election. My hope is, as we honor our colleagues here in this room tonight, that we all walk away fueled by the work, by the bravery we're about to witness here tonight in a lot of these clips. And so my one ask of all of you here tonight is that as we honor our colleagues, that we really honor each other in this room. It's not easy, but it is vital what we do. And I will say this as well, it's appreciated. I often say in the newsroom, and they're probably tired of me saying this, don't underestimate the readers, the viewers, the people who consume the journalism, because they are counting on us to tell these stories. So let's get started tonight. We will honor 15 winners, 14 finalists, the best in audio and video journalism from June of 2022 until June of 2023. Journalism that is, as we like to say, deeply reported and well told. Amid all of the uncertainty of this coming election year, the urgent stories we're chasing out there every single day, I think it's good to gather in this room, right here in Low Library, to celebrate some great journalism. It's often been said that those who ignore history are doomed to repeat it. Our first DuPont winner tonight wants to make sure that doesn't happen. The U.S. and the Holocaust is an illuminating and timely documentary series from PBS that examined America's response to one of the greatest humanitarian crises of the 20th century. Despite considering ourselves a nation of immigrants, America proved unwilling to open its doors to more than just a fraction of the hundreds of thousands of desperate people seeking refuge. In U.S. and the Holocaust, directors Ken Burns and Liv Novick and Sarah Botstein document first-person accounts from families and surface deeply ingrained trends of racism and anti-Semitism here in America. The DuPont jury called the 6-hour-long documentary series a masterclass and praised its combination of carefully written narrative and deeply researched and curated historical imagery. The US and the Holocaust shows just how mainstream anti-Semitism is here in America.
People were out of jobs. People were standing on food lines. You're going to ask me to worry about the persecution of 600,000 or 585,000 Jews in Germany? I can't feed my family.
And Roosevelt's willingness to work alongside Jews had already become a source of controversy. Right-wing orators now denounced what they called the Jew deal. Others claimed FDR himself was a Jew, whose real name was Rosenfeld. Anti-Semitic organizations proliferated across the United States, more than 100 of them before the decade's end. On the East Coast, William Dudley Pelley, a mystic who believed he took his orders directly from Jesus, led a paramilitary fascist organization modeled after the Nazi brown shirts called the Silver Legion of America, and claimed there were 22 million communists in the United States, all of them following orders from rabbis. In the Midwest, an evangelist named Gerald Winrod assured his radio listeners that Roosevelt was a devil controlled by Jews, while Hitler was a man's man and a stalwart defender of Christianity. And Father Charles Coughlin, a Detroit priest with a radio audience of millions, blamed Shylocks and international bankers, code words for Jews, for the Depression.
Would drive the money changers from the temple, and you did it!
Particularly haunting, given what we're witnessing today. Here to accept our first DuPont Silver Baton tonight is co-director Lynn Novick.
To put this here. Okay. Wow. Okay. First, I just want to introduce Sarah Botstein, and co-director of the film, and Mike Welch, producer, and Lucas Frank, co-producer, and we'll get to everybody else here in a minute. I'm very sorry that our co-director and executive producer, Ken Burns, is not able to be with us tonight to share this incredible honor. It's such a privilege to be here along with so many brilliant documentary filmmakers and journalists. Thank you all for keeping our democracy alive, one story at a time. One of the heroes of our film was the journalist Dorothy Thompson, and it's a story with not that many heroes. She was in Nazi Germany when Hitler came to power, and she was trying to push America to live up to our values. And she said that the difference between life and death can be a piece of paper with a stamp on it. And a lot of what we explored was how that became so crushingly true and so tragic for so many people. We have a few thank yous here to say. First of all, thank you to the Columbia DuPont jury for recognizing our work. Thank you to public television, without whom we would not be here. Thank you to the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, who helped us understand this story in so many deep ways. And thank you to our funders, Bank of America, and the Better Angel Society, our writer, Jeffrey C. Ward, and our editors and producers who are not here tonight, and to our incredible group of historical advisors and experts, and some of them are here tonight, Rebecca Erbelding, Nell Irvin Painter, Daniel Mendelsohn, and Daniel Green. Without their wisdom and generosity, we absolutely could not have made this film. And finally, from the bottom of our hearts, we want to thank the brave witnesses and Holocaust survivors who shared their remarkable stories with us. This is a vanishing generation. We feel so privileged to have been able to get to know some of them and to be present as they bore witness. We also want to say a huge thank you to our families who put up with us over the course of a long project. We started this project back in 2015 in a very different world. As we were making the film, we all saw just how fragile our democracy can be and how important it is to tell the truth about our past, The series ends with a quote from Guy Stern, who passed away last month at 101. He was lucky enough to escape Nazi Germany as a teenager, come to America, serve in the army, and go back to help liberate Europe. And this is what he says: "We have seen the nadir of human behavior, and we have no guarantee that it won't recur. If we can make that clear and graphic and understandable, not as something to imitate, but as a warning of what can happen to human beings, then perhaps we have one shield against its recurrence." Thank you.
Our next DuPont Silver Baton goes to a podcast from a time in more recent history, a time of protests and revolution in this country, a touching family drama, and a cautionary tale for today's social justice activists. The Mother Country Radicals podcast from Crooked Media was produced by Zaid Dorn, who himself was born underground, a child of radicals and outlaws on the run from the FBI. He takes us back to the 1970s when his parents and their young friends in the far-left Weather Underground declared war on the United States government. They bombed the Pentagon, the US Capitol, broke comrades out of prison, and teamed up with black militant groups to rob banks, protest against racism, and foment revolution. Here is Zaid talking to his father about the commitment to the cause even after Zaid was born.
Did you ever take part in actions after I was born while you were still underground?
I was involved in a few things, and one of them was, in fact, a jailbreak. And I can't tell you any of the details except to say that we were pretty clear that Bernadine would be with you and that I would do this, and then we would assess it after the fact. But it was, in retrospect, really risky and really on the edge.
Mm-hmm. This was new information for me. Before I started working on this project, I was always told that my parents' part in the armed struggle ended with my birth. But I can't say I'm exactly surprised. I've always known they were willing to risk almost anything, to do what they thought was right. Did you think about what would happen if you were caught?
Yeah, I thought my life would end.
So why?
Because it mattered.
Here to accept the DuPont Silver Baton for Mother Country Radicals, please welcome Zaid Ayers Dorn.
Thank you all. Thank you to the DuPont-Columbia Awards, to Crooked Media and Dust Light Productions. This is really an incredible honor. I'll be quick, but I want to say, well, first of all, it's a very strange kind of journalism to investigate your own parents. It can make for complicated family dinners and vacations. I want to thank, first of all, the subjects of this series, my incredible, heroic parents, Bernadine Dorn and Bill Ayers, who are here with us tonight. I also, yeah, they're right over there. I also want to thank the other members of the Weather Underground and the Black Liberation Army who trusted me and trusted us, this brilliant, creative, courageous team up here with me with their inspiring story. My lovely wife Rachel is here with our daughter Light. Light is a 16-year-old high school journalist herself, talented and indefatigable. I want to end by saying we made this series in some way for young people like her. We think this piece of revolutionary history is a part of their inheritance. To know that there have always been people fighting to make the country and the world better. We believe that the brilliant young activists and artists and journalists of the next generation, people who are fighting right now for truth and democracy, for racial justice, for a ceasefire, that these people are our best hope for a better future. So thank you to them, thank you to you all, we really appreciate it.
investigating your parents. We actually turn from the far left to an investigation of the far right now for our first local news winner tonight. Reporter Scott Friedman from KXAS in Dallas-Fort Worth is here for the second year in a row, actually, this year, to expose the anti-federalist movement among county sheriffs in Texas. According to their interpretation of the law, the county, not the state or federal government, should control all land within its borders. That makes the county sheriff the ultimate law enforcement authority. The reporters showed that more than 20% of sheriffs in Texas have been trained by so-called constitutional sheriffs, group members with strong ties to the far-right Oath Keepers. The DuPont judges said this about this reporting. This was a tenacious investigation of a critically important story with far-reaching consequences. We're going to meet a leader of this movement from the KXAS series, Against All Enemies.
The Supreme Court does not get to say what freedom and liberty is because they've been wrong lots of times. Lots of times.
So when you talk to people who teach constitutional law at big law schools, they say there's one problem with the theory you're teaching, that it's just not true.
Tell them to call me. I'll be glad to talk to them. Tell them to invite me to their classes. I will shame them and put them to shame.
You will shame people who teach constitutional law at major law schools.
Sure, I will.
You know more than they do.
I've debated. Why are you acting like I don't?
County sheriffs are not state or federal judges that have the authority to interpret the extent of laws.
And that's actually the role of the judiciary. That's not the role of sheriffs. It is the judicial branch of the government that determines what the law is and whether the law is constitutional.
The legal experts we spoke to say the danger of teaching sheriffs and county officials that they can pick and choose which laws are constitutional is they may decide not to protect certain rights, or they may encourage people to disregard legitimate federal authorities like the FBI.
This sounds scary to a lot of people because it sounds like you're trying to undermine the credibility and the authority of federal law enforcement.
The FBI doesn't have any credibility left. Don't blame that on us. Their lack of credibility is their own fault, not ours. We're trying to protect the people from all enemies, both foreign and domestic. That hurts no one. A check and balance is what the Constitution is all about. That hurts no one except their pride.
Here to receive the silver baton for Against All Enemies, please welcome to the podium KXAS reporter Scott Friedman.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you to the DuPont jurors. We are amazed to be here. This was an ambitious project for a local TV station that doesn't often produce hour-long investigative documentaries. And the process was a reminder that a documentary project is a little bit like planning a hiking trip with friends. You start with a grand plan for adventure, you hit the trail, and at first the scenery is spectacular, the possibilities seem endless, and then at some point you cross into the forest. You get lost, it starts to rain, you begin to wonder why you thought hiking was such a great idea in the first place. But there's no time for that thought because you have to find your way back before you starve or the bears find you first. In this case, though, I was fortunate to have some great guides hiking with me. And with a ton of determination, this team kept asking smart questions, kept searching for answers and connecting the dots, and they got us home. And now, sitting around the campfire with all of you here tonight, it's amazing how the glow of a silver baton can make you forget how challenging the journey was to get here. In all seriousness, when something like January 6th happens, it's obviously essential, I think, for us as journalists to look back at how and why something like that happened. But during our time in the woods together, we also discovered that it's important to look forward and ask what happens next. How do the ideologies and false narratives that drive something like January 6th evolve? Sometimes these things may play out in a shockingly public way, as they did on the steps of the Capitol, or sometimes the movements that threaten our democratic norms may spread more quietly from town to town, sometimes even aided by people in positions of power. And that's where we can play a role, holding the powerful accountable. And I'm proud of how this team did that, and I'm proud to work for a company that gives us the resources and support to do that work. We also want to congratulate all the other amazing recipients tonight, and I want to share one thought from experience. Some of our team, as you heard, was fortunate to be here last year for another project. For me, it was a bittersweet trip. I had just wrapped up a visit with my mom, who was in her final days of fighting pancreatic cancer, and she insisted that I be here and could not miss this event, and she watched it from home. And we spoke the next day, and she talked about how as a parent, you wonder what your child will aspire to be someday and how rewarding it is when they pursue something they're passionate about and find some success. And she told me, she said, I'm so happy that I saw that because I'll always have that in my memory. And tonight she is in mine, along with the rest of my amazing family. And I hope in the days ahead, each of you will find a moment to share this accomplishment with the people in your life who believed in you before you even knew what was possible. Congratulations and thank you.
Hey, Scott, before you leave the stage, because we're so competitive, what are you coming back next year with? Because we should just prepare at ABC to compete. Anyway, it's incredible to see that kind of reporting at the local level. It really is inspiring. Great reporting, the kind we're celebrating here tonight, obviously goes behind official narratives, asks the tough questions. We've seen it here already this evening. Our next local DuPont winners reporting did exactly that after the tragic school shooting in Uvalde in May of 2022. In the days following the horrific attack that, of course, left 19 school children and 2 teachers dead, local officials tried to portray the police response, as you'll remember, as heroic. Investigative reporter Tony Poletsky led the collaborative reporting effort that told the real story. He worked jointly with the Austin American-Statesman newspaper and KVUE. He obtained the 77-minute video of the fatally flawed police response to the shooting by one lone gunman with that assault rifle. As we all know in this room, this reporting helped change the national perception of the Uvalde story. It did a superb job of explaining the footage to viewers and followed up to demand answers from police and politicians who in the beginning had been pushing that very different narrative. Here's what really happened inside Robb Elementary.
Reporting by the KVUE defenders, first in this screen grab obtained 3 weeks after the shooting, deepened questions about the police response. It showed heavily armed officers in the hall minutes after the gunman went into a classroom. 3 weeks later, as Uvalde and state officials refused to release information, the defenders were the first to show this video of officers running toward the classroom when they first arrived, just as they are trained to do. But they quickly retreated after taking gunfire, and more than an hour passed before more local, state, and federal officers filled the hallway before finally breaching the classroom and killing the gunman. Outside the school that day, parents begged for police to do more.
Hey, we got guys going in to get kids, okay?
This document, obtained from the Texas Rangers Robb Elementary School shooting file, makes clear that the story of police bravery is traced in part to local Uvalde officials. Sources say the one-page document, titled Narrative, was presented to the Texas Department of Public Safety a week after the shooting, an effort to cling to erroneous information even after the truth had begun emerging. It says, quote, the total number of persons saved by the heroes that are local law enforcement and the other assisting agencies is over 500 per UCISD. 40 minutes were not wasted, but each minute was used to save lives of children and teachers.
Please join me in welcoming to the podium KVUE reporter Tony Poletsky.
It is indeed such an honor to be here tonight. Thank you to the DuPont jurors for this high honor, and we also want to congratulate our fellow recipients. Some of you are friends, old and new, and we stand with you proudly tonight. I want to thank the news leaders here with me who had the courage to air and publish such emotionally fraught and difficult reporting. I want to thank my colleagues who help produce, elevate, and support our work. And I know that we all know in this industry the amount of energy that goes into this type of coverage, and I want to thank my husband, Ro, who never once expressed frustration with the time I devoted to every detail of this coverage. As we all know too well, immediately after the shooting in Uvalde, officials cast a story of heroism, praising the law enforcement response the morning of May 24th, 2022 at Robb Elementary School. Journalism pierced that narrative, and journalism brought the truth. Our newsrooms confronted an ethical and editorial minefield once we obtained the 77-minute video that fully dismantled those heroic accounts, wrenching decisions that we were forced to make that we had never confronted. Yes, we faced a furnace of criticism, but we all recognized the truth as our guidepost. In the aftermath of the shooting in Uvalde, journalists from across the nation produced vital, groundbreaking work, and that was noted just last week in a scathing U.S. Department of Justice report. But I would like to offer that our work highlights the importance of local journalism. Our ability to obtain the footage was the result of decades of sustained work and trust built in our home state. This work also underscores the strength of unselfish collaborations between broadcast and digital platforms and between two local news outlets, putting aside worry over clicks or credit, and instead aligning ourselves with the journalistic fundamental of the public's right to know. Thank you.
He came to my office earlier today in the newsroom, and I wasn't sure if he knew he had won, which was a really tricky thing for me. I said, "Good luck tonight." He knew. Congratulations. It was extraordinary reporting and so necessary on that story, as we all know. I'm happy to introduce my partner up here on the stage now, Audie Cornish. She's an anchor and correspondent, as you know, from CNN. Her career in journalism began at the Associated Press in Boston, where we were both on the streets there together in 2001, right before the September 11th attacks. She served as a co-host of NPR's flagship news program, where we all know her from, All Things Considered. After 2 decades at NPR, she joined CNN, where she currently hosts a weekly CNN audio podcast, The Assignment with Audie Cornish, and appears on CNN covering national, political, and breaking news. Her assignment tonight, the DuPont-Columbia Awards.
Thank you, David. Thank you. And thank all of you. It's so wonderful to see your faces. You know, it's an honor to be here with all of you to celebrate this work of those who are doing reporting in the public service. In journalism, each story is basically built on a spine of research, right? And then it kind of takes flight on the wings of the stories of people who want to share them. And stories that in some cases might never see the light of day otherwise. So in Gaza right now, more than 80 journalists, all but a handful Palestinian, have been killed since the start of the war between Hamas and Israel. People trying to cover a story that they are living through power outages, through airstrikes, through the deaths of friends and loved ones. Now, journalists in many parts of the world are charged with covering stories that they are living. And they do that to ensure that the truth survives even if they do not. Now, at its best, this is mission-driven work, and it has high stakes for the voices that we amplify. So I want to take a moment just to praise all of the nominees this past year for the stories that you've told and the way that you have told them, with curiosity, and with urgency, and with empathy. Now, the DuPont jury also recognized 14 impressive finalists, and they included dogged local investigations into police misconduct in Detroit and Buffalo. There was a radio series about privacy law in Massachusetts that had unintended consequences. And there were 2 exposés that revealed an egregious lack of oversight in both the Chicago and Denver foster care systems.
It was June 3rd when Noel's brother and Candace's nephew, 8-year-old Demetrius Wilson, was beaten to death with a wooden back scrubber. His great-aunt Susan Baffor was trusted by the family and Denver Human Services to care for the 2 siblings. Now, she is charged with his murder.
It was just a caseworker came, dropped her off some stuff, and was pretty much like, we'll talk soon.
Does it make sense to you that an officer could sit in the Oakland County Jail and be paid for it?
Getting paid for criminal activity, absolutely not. It doesn't make sense.
And yet that's what's happened for Detroit police officer Artez Williams. He was brought to the Oakland County Jail after his 3rd assault case while a Detroit officer.
2019, Trooper Brandon Voss, often called Super Trooper by some lawyers, had 3 misconducts against him in 3 months over his behavior, dealing with the public and police protocols, suspended 30 days. 2008, Trooper Aaron Destro took pictures in his uniform with his penis exposed, docked 5 days annual leave, but then in 2010, he had sex on the job, suspended 8 days.
But they're all still on the job.
That's right.
Why is that?
Well, because we've done an evaluative process.
So the law didn't lead to more survivors calling for help, but it did do something else. It enabled police to withhold records that could be embarrassing. More than 40 police departments across the state refused to provide WBUR records of officers accused of rape, child molestation, or other allegations involving sexual or domestic violence.
Over this 1 year, this girl has been raped, she's been trafficked, she's been abused, she's been beaten up, and she's been shot. She actually has a bullet in her leg.
We found Johnson has a lengthy criminal record. The teen was placed with him just months after he was released from federal prison after a 24-month sentence on a firearms charge. Before that, he spent 3 years in state prison for 2 robbery convictions. Despite all that, Johnson passed placement clearance and was approved by DCFS to become a foster parent.
Our next audio winner tonight comes from New Hampshire Public Radio and reporter Lauren Chulgin for the deeply reported and basically disturbing investigative podcast, The 13th Step. And it details the pattern of sexual abuse that targeted recovering addicts. The alleged assailant, Eric Spofford, is the owner of a prominent addiction treatment center. 13 Steppers, we learn, is a catchphrase for people who prey on vulnerable recovering addicts with less than a year of sobriety. So the series also took a wider look at flaws in this multi-billion-dollar recovery industry. Chulgin faced repercussions for her reporting, and that included harassment, attacks on her home, and a defamation lawsuit that was just dismissed this past December. Here is one of Spofford's alleged victims describing how she says he manipulated her.
What he ended up being like was like the supreme commander of recovery, like God of recovery. And to have God send me a friend request was like, ooh, that's so cool. He started to ask me for pictures of my private areas. He says, hey, can you want to send me some picture of your blah, blah, and at first, I remember being shocked. I was like, but you know what? I'll say this, is like right now in 2022, I am a completely different person. And I have respect for myself. And if anybody ever even tried to do anything like that to me again, it would be a whole different story. But at that moment, I obliged him. And I think I was probably drinking at the time. I felt like awful. I just felt awful. I felt like, here it is. He's like supposed to be someone that is so important in recovery and has dedicated his life to help people struggling with the things that he went through. And, it was at that point in time, I'm like, who do I trust?
Here to accept the DuPont Silver Baton for New Hampshire Public Radio and the 13th Step, please welcome Lauren Chuljan.
Wow. It's really something to hear that echoing off of this great building. We are so thankful for the jurors for showing such, I don't know, we're very overwhelmed by this, and we're thrilled. I speak for everyone on this stage when I say how proud I am of all of our work, how thankful we are for our friends and family who helped us get through some really difficult times. A lot has been written about the vandalism we faced, the lawsuit, as you heard, and how dark of a moment it is for journalism to see that we face such repercussions. But I'm choosing to see this as a triumph. I'm choosing to remember that women chose journalism when they didn't have an answer to such a big, unsolvable problem. They chose telling us their stories when they felt they had no answers. They taught us that recovery is difficult and beautiful, and that it obviously should not be a time to be exploited. I accept this baton for all the women who spoke with me, for the women who spoke with me and changed their minds and were too terrified. And I accept this for those who just couldn't come forward at all. We're so thankful that you recognize this work and really appreciate it. Thanks.
We forget there's sort of a unspoken tax for women sometimes when we're doing this work. Thank you, Lauren. Your story has been incredible to watch. Now, these DuPont Awards honor reporting that has an impact, like our final podcast winner, and it's from an expose from American Public Media that's changed laws in 7 states, with bills in the wings and many others. You might even say it's sparked a nationwide reading reckoning. Sold a Story shows how educators came to believe in something that isn't true and are now faced with the consequences. Children harmed, money wasted, an education system upended. Reporter Emily Hanford delved into this widely accepted method for teaching children to read that's held sway in schools for more than a generation, even though it's been proven wrong by cognitive scientists decades ago. So Hanford investigated these influential authors who promoted this idea and the company that profited from their work. The jury praised the depth of this investigation. The reporting team conducted a record search of the country's largest school districts, basically to build this comprehensive database of reading curricula. So in this clip from APM's Sold a Story, this is how not to teach a child to read.
The teacher reads the story. The kids can see the words on the screen. They're following along as she reads. And then the teacher comes to a word that she's covered up with a little yellow sticky note.
Okay, so we're going to stop right here on this covered word.
And the teacher says, what could this word be? Let's look at the picture.
We're going to see if the picture helps us to figure out what that word would be.
The kids can't see the word. It's covered with the sticky note, so there's no way they can sound it out. They're just trying to figure out what the word could be based on what's going on in the story.
If we think about what's happening so far in the story, we know Zelda and Ivy's dad made cucumber sandwiches for lunch. And Zelda and Ivy didn't want to eat the sandwiches, so they ran away. And now they think their mom and dad will
what? Zelda and Ivy ran away, and now they think their mom and dad will scold them? Find them?
Do you think that covered word could be the word miss?
Miss them.
Could it be the word miss? Because now that they're gone, maybe their parents will miss them?
The teacher asks the kids to think about whether miss could be the word, using the strategies they've been taught.
Let's do our triple check and see. Does it make sense? Does it sound right? How about the last part of our triple check? Does it look right? Let's uncover the word and see if it looks right.
The teacher lifts up the sticky note, and indeed, the word is miss.
It looks right too. Good job. Very good job. Go ahead and click on the next slide so you can practice this strategy on our next part of our story.
This seemed weird to Corinne. Why have kids guess the word? Why not have them look at the word and try to actually read it?
Please welcome to the podium education reporter for American Public Media, Emily Hanford.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's so inspiring to be here and to hear about this great work and to be among this company. Congratulations, everyone. I want to really quickly thank my team, reporter Christopher Peak, who will find the answer to any question, producer Chris Julin, who makes everything sound really good, Catherine Winter, who was my editor for 15 years and will always be my cherished friend. And very special thanks to Chris Worthington. There would be no Sold a Story if not for him. And thanks to APM, it is harder and harder and harder to find companies that will support this kind of work. So thank you. This reporting is having a big impact in the real world, and it's really gratifying to see that. I did a lot of reporting for a long time that didn't have any impact at all. I want to thank all of the people who have ever sat down with me and my microphone, sometimes for hours and days at a time. Lots and lots of people who never even made it into the story. I have learned from everyone I've talked to in my career. I have especially learned from the parents and the children and the teachers who have been sharing their stories about reading with me and with all of us over the past few years. I am really, really grateful to all of you. Kids deserve to be taught how to read, and teachers deserve to know how to do that. Thank you so much.
So feature-length documentaries actually have a long history at the DuPont Awards. ABC News Studios, Onyx, and Hulu looked behind the shockingly high maternal mortality rates in America, particularly with Black women, who are 3 times as likely to die giving birth as white women. In Aftershock, the filmmakers Paula Eizelt and Tanya Lewis-Lee tell personal stories behind those statistics, focusing on 2 men who became activists after losing their partners. The filmmakers also broadened the scope to understand the historical context of medical racism, and the film has had an impact through community screenings and outreach. Healthcare providers and medical school students now are also rethinking their practice and approach to patients after seeing this film. Now, in this excerpt of Aftershock, we're going to meet 30-year-old Shamani Gibson, who tragically died 13 days following the birth of her son. This was in 2019. We're also going to hear from Shamani's mother, Shawnee Benton Gibson, and bereaved partner, Omari Maynard, as they begin to process what happened.
It's a struggle every day, particularly because what happened with Shamani was absolutely preventable. She ended up with a C-section.
Baby, that we waited forever for.
You did amazing, Shamani.
So we leave the hospital. Within the first week, she was complaining about having shortness of breath when she talked.
She walked down the stairs to get something, and when she was trying to get back up, she couldn't move. Like she had to just lay on the floor for a while.
We called the hospital, tell them what the symptoms were. The doctor said, it's okay. Just relax. That proceeded for the next 2 weeks. We go back to the hospital for Shamani so that they can remove her staples from her C-section. Again, tell them what the symptoms were, asking what are some things that we can do. And, the answer pretty much was the same every time. Just make sure that she rests. There wasn't much of a sense of urgency on their part at all.
That's the expert. I'm not a doctor. So, okay, I rallied people to make meals for her. I did what we do. Just take care of her.
2 weeks after, she gave birth, Shamani was complaining that she had really sharp chest pains. She says, I want to go to the hospital now.
It's heavy, actually. Here to accept the DuPont Silver Baton for Aftershock are directors Tanya Lewis-Lee and Paula Isa. Thank you so much. Thank you, David. Thank you, Audie. Thank you to the DuPont jurors. We are truly honored by this recognition. We are grateful for the amazing work that all of you all do in this room. It's inspiring and it is humbling. We do this work, as you heard, that the film has made impact. We make this film because of the impact. We know that it's a disgrace that the United States has the worst maternal health outcomes in the industrialized world, and we know it can be better, which is why we do the work and why we hope that the film continues to be a catalyst for an important conversation to make for change.
And thank you all so much. And it's important to note that since the fall of Roe, the top 10 states that have the highest rates of maternal mortality all have abortion bans right now. So we are in a full spectrum reproductive health crisis, and we need these stories. We need everyone to be telling stories about the incredible people behind us. If everyone can clap for them. We came together to tell stories as diverse women and to be our sister's keeper. And then we joined forces with the families of Shamani Gibson and Amber Rose Isaac, who should be here, who were young women who died in childbirth and it was preventable. And these people, Omari Maynard, Shawnee Benton Gibson, and Bruce McIntyre, have not stopped fighting for their loved ones and to preserve their memories and fighting for a better maternal health care system. So not only should women survive giving birth, but they should thrive. That's really what we need to be aiming for. Thank you so much. We're so honored.
Now I'd like to welcome to the podium the director of the DuPont-Columbia Awards, Lisa R. Cohen.
Good evening. So nice to see everyone. Tonight marks my 10th ceremony as director of these awards. And I have to say, the evening never fails to awe and inspire me about the profession and the important work that you all do. That certainly goes for our next award to Frontline PBS for courageous reporting on what's happening today in Afghanistan under Taliban rule. After 20 years of relative freedom, a generation of Afghan women and girls have now lost the right to go to school, to work, or even be outside their homes. Reporter Ramita Navai and director Kareem Shah put themselves in danger to document shocking scenes of violence and dehumanization against women. They also reported on the resilience of activists fighting against such repression. Filming undercover inside an Afghan prison, Navai was able to show the world that women are secretly jailed without being charged for so-called crimes of immorality. That includes appearing in public without a male relative.
دوسیه شما رسمی ثبت شده؟ محکمه نمیشه. 4 ماه 3 ماه محکمه نمیشه. محکمه یعنی چی؟ ما رسیدگی نمیکنه. اینا چه بندیش نمیشه. اما طفلای شیرخوری افماییم به خانه 8 تا طفل شیرخور خانه‌ای کرای گشنه و دشنه هم شدیم.
Then I spotted a young woman I recognized from the photographs her mother had shown me. It was Mariam.
How are you doing?
I spoke in English so the guards wouldn't understand.
Why have you been taken?
21 days.
And what for? What crime?
They don't let us to speak. When we speak, they will punish us, okay? So just say to all the world that they don't let us to go.
Okay.
So
A female prison guard told Mariam to stop speaking English. After the reprimand, she started praising the Taliban.
اینا هم همراه ما خیلی رابطه خوب داره. دیگه شکر کل چیز عالیه.
Okay.
دیگه برادرای مجاهد ما هم خوب هستن شکر. Bless you.
Great to speak to you.
Thank you so much.
Accepting the silver baton for Frontline PBS and Afghanistan Undercover is correspondent Ramita Navai.
Oh, this guy, you're standing so far away from me. This award means a lot to us. Thank you so much to the judges. Thank you, where is she? Rainey Aronson-Roth and your amazing team at Frontline. The situation for women in Afghanistan has got even worse and continues to get worse, as has the situation for Afghan journalists who try to report this story. So we'd like to dedicate this award to our brave, brilliant Afghan team, who we can't name, but who risk their lives to help us get this story out. And of course, you can't talk about the dangers of journalism right now without talking about the most dangerous place to be a journalist in Gaza, as Audie mentioned. So we'd also like to dedicate this award to all our Palestinian colleagues in Gaza right now who are literally dying to tell the truth. Thank you so much, everyone.
And now it is my great honor to introduce the Dean of Columbia Journalism School and my boss, Jelani Cobb.
Good evening. It is my pleasure at this 82nd annual DuPont-Columbia ceremony to welcome you and to hand out some well-deserved thank yous. The first one is to our DuPont Awards staff who make this happen every year, and it is a year-long effort. Prizes Director Lisa Cohen and Executive Director for Professional Prizes Abby Wright. They'll be starting on the 2025 awards ceremony tomorrow. That's not really true. They take the day off after these kind of things. Second, thank you to all those who helped choose tonight's honorees. Before the DuPont jury met, almost 100 screeners, many of them former DuPont winners themselves, evaluated some 500 entries. Then the jury convened in October for 3 days to select 30 finalists, and later met again to choose the 15 winners. So thank you to the jury, and will you please stand? Thank you for your time and dedication to upholding journalistic standards for the profession and for the public, and thank you for all that you've done. It's also important to acknowledge and thank the staff and trustees of the Jesse Ball DuPont Fund, some of whom are here tonight. Mari Karashi, where are you, Mari? Oh, there you are. And Anna Cabral, will you please stand? By maintaining the legacy of Jessie Ball DuPont to honor her husband, Alfred I. DuPont, you help us set the standards for excellence for journalists everywhere. Thank you. And I would like to acknowledge something particularly important tonight. With great gratitude that the Jessie Ball DuPont Fund will sustain the future of these important awards with a generous, very generous, $10 million endowment. So once again, thank you, Jessie Ball DuPont Fund. In addition to the awards, your support allows us to offer partial scholarships to 2 students. Let me introduce this year's DuPont Fellows, Daryl Lau and Nishta Shanti.
We'll get back to honoring more winners shortly. But first, let us tell you how the DuPont-Columbia Awards came to be and more about what we're celebrating tonight.
Jessie Ball DuPont wanted to create a lasting legacy to honor her husband, Alfred I. DuPont's commitment to freedom of information. In 1942, 8 years after his death, the first DuPont Award ceremony honored radio, then later added television, and more recently, streaming and online. Since 1968, the DuPonts have been administered here at Columbia Journalism School.
As DuPont Fellows, we have spent our office hours immersed in the study of excellent reporting, exploring first the DuPont entries, then all the finalists, and ultimately the winners.
We've heard and discussed comments and critiques, and we got to sit in on the closed-door jury sessions. Listening in on debates between such prominent journalists taught us what makes a DuPont winner. It's an experience that will elevate our own work.
What makes a DuPont? Watch this.
Excellent journalism is vital to a decent and robust and strong democracy.
The truth still does matter. Good reporting matters.
When there's disaster, when there's trouble, when other people are running away, journalists are expected to run forward and find the truth for us.
Surveillance cameras capture him arriving at the
If you can tell enough people the truth and tell it in a compelling enough way, it can actually help make change in the world.
He's not responsive right now, bro.
There is no shortage of troubled spots in today's complicated world, places that cry out for comprehensive coverage.
It's the essence of journalism to convey what it feels like there.
We are the point of the spear for an audience that depends on us to pierce the cover-up, to deflate the myth, to discomfort the error.
This will be hard to watch, but it should be seen.
Exposing injustice, taking a stand, making life better somehow for those less fortunate.
At any given time, somewhere in America, a local television station is peeling away the layers of the smaller society.
Did you falsify campaign documents, sir?
Investigative reporters play a crucial role in our communities by exposing wrongdoings and holding public officials accountable.
These awards keep reminding me that in the fog and the ice, there is land.
Remember, batons are meant to be passed on in the race, so pass on your experience, you winners, and your standards and your ideals to the young men and women in your newsroom.
This endeavor called journalism is truly a noble endeavor, and one that's done to the very highest standards can really make a difference, can really and truly change and shape our world for the better.
DuPont winners often make extraordinary efforts to bring audiences to forbidden places, in this case, North Korea. The DuPont jury called our next winner, from director Madeleine Gavin, an important and gut-wrenching contribution to our understanding of a society and people closed off from the world. Beyond Utopia is another remarkable feature-length film documenting the harrowing journey of a family of 5 North Koreans, including 2 young children and an elderly grandmother. With secretly shot footage, we follow their escape from North Korea as they cross rivers and walk through multiple countries, including dense jungles. Along the way, we learn the context and history of repression in North Korea, what it takes to escape, and why they are risking it all to go beyond utopia.
그럼 영상을 보내드릴게요.
예, 감사합니다.
닷새 헤매서 이 교회도 좋은 사람들 만나서 여기 있는데 여기에 매일 그 대화하다가 다음에 우리도 며칠 후반에 잡히게 하는지 모르겠는데
목사님 우리를 좀 도와주십시오. 도와주시오 우리를 아들 맨발 불을 캐먹으며 여기까지 왔는데
북한은 중국, 러시아, 남한과 국경을 맞대고 있어요. 남한의 국경에는 200만 개의 지뢰가 설치되어 있기 때문에 통과가 어렵고요. 그래서 대부분 탈북자들은 1,400km에 달하는 강을 맞대고 있는 중국으로 도피할 수밖에 없는 거죠. 하지만 그 강을 넘어서도 여러 개의 나라를 거쳐 동남아 안전지대로 가야 되는데 중국의 그 탈북자를 구해줄 사람이 없으면 이들은 젊은 여성 같은 경우에는 화상 테스팅이라든지 아니면은 뭐 매춘을 한다든지 농촌에 그 장가 못 간 사람들한테 팔아 넘긴다든지 마약, 인신매매 결국은 가장 피해를 보고 있는 것이 탈북자이죠.
일단 이거 먹어야지 걷는다. 우리 너무 좋네.
80노모를 화상 채팅이나 뭐 매춘굴에 팔 수도 없고 또 부부가 있었지만 또 한 개 부부가 넘어온 거고 또 어린 아이들이 있어서 사실 그 국경에서 이들은 인신매매로의 가치가 없는 사람들이에요. 결국은 그런 사람들이 왔을 때는 교회, 이 기독교 단체에다 연락을 해서 좀 너희들이 이들을 데려가고 돈을 덜라.
Accepting the DuPont Award for Beyond Utopia is director Madeleine Gavin.
Oh my God. On behalf of so many partners and producers on our team, I want to thank the duPont-Columbia Awards for this incredible honor. And just, you know, to be in a room with so many amazing journalists and so many other nominees is just so incredibly meaningful, and we are humbled by this. I have to give a special thanks to our crew and our partners in South Korea, Japan, and Southeast Asia, you know, some of whom wanted to be here tonight. The film is opening in Asia right now, so there's a lot going on for them there. And to our funders, to ITVS, PBS, and Roadside Attractions, who had the courage to, you know, put this film out there when many venues were afraid of the risks of doing anything with North Korea. Most importantly, I want to, you know, thank our subjects who have been traveling with us for most of the last several months and are now in South Korea because of the opening. They, you know, trusted us to tell their stories, to follow them, and they really wanted to be here tonight. They're very honored by this award. You know, cracking open I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional. Cracking open stories and revealing lives, you know, of people who we don't necessarily have the opportunity to witness is such a huge part of what we all do. And I want to really dedicate this award to the incredibly brave people in North Korea who have been risking their lives really since the 1990s, since the famine, shooting out of paper bags, shooting out of the pockets of their coats, the sleeves of their jackets, to get the truth of what real life is like inside North Korea. It is their footage that I saw, that I found, that made me feel the pulse of the people and made me realize the absence of the people in our media. And it was that gulf and their work that made me feel this film had to be made. And so they are the primary source. They are the first journalists of this film, and they absolutely, deserve this award with us. I just, my hope is that this film will help to bring forth the voices of the 26 million people of North Korea who we do not have the opportunity to hear from, and that every time we mention, Kim Jong-un, the missiles, the parades, we mention the people, because they have been suffering. That country has been here for now 75 years. We need to hear from them, and we need to acknowledge them and think about them. So thank you so much. This is really such an honor.
We have a second look now at some of the 2024 DuPont finalists, showing the wide range of the entries this year. They're reports that trace the secret inner workings of a powerful private Russian army, a scathing investigation of US friendly fire in Iraq, an emotional portrait of a girls' school whose students fled Afghanistan to find refuge in Rwanda, and a brutal trek through the Darien Gap, the journey migrants took. This is some of the biggest stories of the year, and these are more of the finalists.
They only walk when they're told to. The stories here are many, but there is only one goal: America. And the dream is just that, a reverie of hope, of conviction that they will be the ones to make it over danger, disease, dehydration, deportation. About this number, every day, every year, almost doubling.
Classes here are taught in English.
Go!
The girls were racing to identify nearly 200 countries all around the globe. They're wearing masks not to protect against COVID, but to hide their identities to protect their families still in Afghanistan.
I'll be honest, I don't remember it even as the commandant.
Yeah.
So, shame on me, I guess, for not, retaining that level of detail of information. But if it crossed my desk and I put somebody on it, there was another investigation or two going on at that point.
Didn't remember it, even as commandant? What, that deadly friendly fire where the son of the House Armed Services Committee chairman was involved? The worst marine-on-marine friendly fire in decades? Shame on me? That doesn't make sense.
The Wall Street Journal examined shipping records, government databases, sanctions documents, and corporate records to identify 64 companies linked to Wagner's founder, Yevgeny Prigozhin. We found more than half of those are being used by Wagner as a complex network of front companies to hide the flow of money and materials that ultimately connect to the Kremlin.
The Sixth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution guarantees citizens the right to an attorney and, of course, to a speedy trial. But our next winner, the sixth, reported on a constitutional failure in this country. Defendants are languishing in prison for months, even years, as they await trial due to a scandalous nationwide shortage of public defenders. One despondent inmate hung himself while waiting for a lawyer. Another has been in a pretrial jail for 10 years, just waiting for proper counsel. WANF TV Atlanta investigative reporter Andrew Perotti and his team spent months uncovering the story in Georgia, but they also traveled to Wisconsin, to Oregon, to Maryland. The project was part of the ambitious investigative TV team. This is an innovative group of investigative reporters locally owned by Gray-owned TV. They shared resources, widespread distribution on both streaming services and 113 Gray stations. Here's the inside of one Fulton County courtroom and the defendant still waiting.
Good morning, Mr. Robinson. How you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing good.
It's easy to spot the problem nearly every day in Fulton County Court. People charged with crimes waiting for a court-appointed attorney.
How long that gonna be?
If I had an answer, I'd give it to you. We are working through an unacceptable crisis, and you're not the only one.
In Fulton County alone, court records show 113 people indicted for crimes did not have an attorney this past August, many in jail for months, 29 of them longer than a year, nearly all of them black, including Demario Phillips.
How are you today?
Good.
The 19-year-old charged with murder sat in jail 11 months and did not have a lawyer for this court hearing. He says he's innocent. Demario's parents asked the judge for help.
We're trying, we can't afford an attorney.
Right.
Prices are like so high.
I want to be real clear. The expectation is not, why don't you go get a lawyer? That's not required. If you cannot afford one for your son, the state of Georgia has an obligation to get a lawyer for your son. And the state of Georgia is not living up to its obligation right now.
Frida and Demario Sr. are the teen's parents.
What was your reaction when he said that?
I was shocked. We keep doing the same dance. We go to these status hearings knowing that they haven't found him a lawyer yet.
That problem needs to be fixed soon. And if it's not, I think you're going to start reading about it in the newspapers with lawsuits, and that may be what it takes.
Robert McBurney is the Fulton County Superior Court judge behind the camera.
What we have right now is akin to the scenarios that we decry when we say, well, look at the criminal justice system in China or Iran, where people can get scooped up and held without charges or without it being made clear what's going on, and most importantly, no due process. They're stuck, they're silenced, and they don't have a next court date other than to come back and see the judge who says, this is a travesty.
Please welcome investigative reporter Andy Parati on behalf of WANF-TV and Gray Television's Investigative TV.
On behalf of myself and everyone standing behind me who made sure this important series got on television and online, thank you, thank you, thank you. You know, about a year and a half ago, my boss asked me a pretty simple question. She said, what does a successful investigative story look like to you? How do you measure success? And at the time, I remember thinking, I wanted to say something impressive or profound. And, you know, when I've uncovered political corruption or millions of dollars in taxpayer waste, I think all of those would be considered a win. But instead, I said, when I've made someone feel heard. When I've made someone feel heard. And to me, that's what this series has always been about. The right to be heard, the right to tell your side of the story before you're punished. A few months ago, I was at the University of Georgia speaking to a journalism class, and I showed them one of the stories in the series, and at the end, a student raised their hand and said, hey, I get that everyone should have an attorney, but aren't you nervous that you're spending so much time and energy profiling people who are actually guilty of the crime they're accused? And I said, no, that is not what this is about. This is about everyone getting a fair shot, about leveling the playing field in an already imbalanced system, that no matter where you come from, the color of your skin, or whether or not you could afford an attorney, everyone deserves this right. Let me tell you one more story about a young man that I never met, but I've thought a lot about over the past year. His name is Troquel Van Marco. He was 18 years old. He had dreams of becoming a chef. He had just gone to prom, but he found himself in trouble and inside a county jail in Wisconsin. He waited for a public defender that would never come. And on the day of his court hearing, a judge forced him to represent himself. He was 18 years old. He didn't know what to say, not to say. He didn't know the law. He was angry and scared, and rightfully so. When he went back to his jail cell that evening, he took his own life. He never felt heard. He never got to tell his side of the story. So tonight, I dedicate this award to him and to everyone still waiting to be heard. Thank you very much.
There are few world leaders as enigmatic as Russia's Vladimir Putin. Our next DuPont winner tonight, Putin versus the West, is a three-part documentary series that takes viewers behind closed doors to hear directly from other world leaders about the misperceptions and the missed opportunities that took place in the lead-up to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The series covers three pivotal moments of the last decade: the invasion of Crimea, the use of chemical weapons in Syria, and the full-scale invasion, of course, of Ukraine, that show how Putin was able to take the measures that he did and get away with it, and how hard it was to get consensus resistance from the West. The judges have called it an extraordinary behind-the-scenes look at international diplomacy at the highest levels. It provides an important understanding of the nuances that can make a difference between peace and war.
At the summit the next day, Cameron hoped his fellow leaders would help change Putin's mind.
La question s'est posée d'une possible utilisation des armes chimiques sur un quartier de Damas qui était jusque-là un quartier où l'opposition avait des positions. C'était convenu, c'était la ligne rouge qu'avait posée Barack Obama, qu'en cas d'utilisation des armes chimiques, c'était indéfendable.
At the G8, you had 7 very like minds who believed in democracy and the rule of law. And in Putin, you had someone who took a different view. It was very much 7 against 1, and Putin digs in more.
Et Vladimir Poutine, il réaffirme là son soutien à Bachar el-Assad. Quand les Occidentaux ne sont pas capables, après une intervention comme il y en a eu en Libye, d'offrir une solution pérenne, c'est vrai que ça offre à Poutine un argument de dire, vous voyez, vaut mieux garder les dictateurs.
That's really incredible to have that access to put words to those images of world leaders. Accepting the silver baton for Putin versus the West, series producer Norma Percy.
Thank you, DuPont. I've really always thought this is the award that matters, which is why all the top team, that's Max and Lottie and Liv and Tim and Lucy, we've come all the way from London to say thank you. I mean, what I do, what I've been doing for 30 years, is to try and show what it's like inside the room with the really big international political decisions are made. To do so, we have a simple method. We go to the people who were there, the presidents and prime ministers and their top aides, and only the people who were there, and ask them what happened. So you need luck in this business. In the spring of 2021, the BBC asked us to look at Russia. We'd made a series about Putin before, in 2012. Things were different then. We got great access to the Kremlin, with difficulty, but we got the access. But since then, Russia became a much more difficult place to work. And when the BBC asked us again, I said, no, we just never get inside. But what they replied was, we don't want you to go and interview Putin again. We want you to go to the Western leaders that you've been talking to for your past series, like Inside Obama's White House and Trump and Inside Europe, and ask them what it was like dealing with Putin. So, I don't know, Russia was quite quiet back then, but we started work and we've done months of research and we're into filming when 9 months later, Putin invaded. And, well, the series became much more topical, much more important, but a lot harder to make. So, I mean, we're particularly thrilled that the award we respect seems to be saying we got it right. So, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Now a DuPont Award that honors ABC News for their network-wide commitment to reporting on perhaps the most critical issue of our time, the environment. 2 important projects this past year earned ABC our next Silver Baton. And the first was called The Power of Water, and it featured robust reporting across all programs and platforms, as well as 23 ABC stations during Earth Week. One of the key resources at risk in this issue due to rising global temperatures is what keeps us alive, water. So whether it's the mega drought in the western US or contaminated water supplies on American soil or environmental issues exacerbated by climate change like flooding, like sea level rise, the power of water explored them all. ABC deployed teams around the world from South Sudan to Navajo Nation and the Great Lakes. These stories showed the grip the planet's most important resource has over all life on Earth. Now, the second project being honored is from ABC News Live, Trashed, The Secret Life of Plastic Recycling, which cleverly answers the question of where your plastic goes once you virtuously drop it in a helpful recycling bin at a retail store. So this was a 6-month effort, and it involved the investigative team at ABC News and 9 ABC-owned or affiliate stations by deploying dozens of electronic trackers bundled up in plastic bags. And they ended up in recycling bins, and here are some of the results.
After the drop-offs, we spent months monitoring each tracker's location multiple times a day.
Here's where one of those air-tagged bags ended up.
The trackers pinging whenever a mobile phone or digital device was near. We checked every location the trackers pinged from on their journey and determined they likely did not encounter plastic bag sorting en route, one that could have potentially separated a tracker from a bag. One of the first trackers to move was one we deployed at a Target in Kingston, New York, and it showed up about a week later deep inside a New York landfill, an outcome that would happen again and again around the country. In all, we launched 46 trackers, 23 of them last pinged at landfills or trash incinerators, 7 last stopped pinging at transfer stations that don't recycle or sort plastic bags, 6 pinged at the store where they were dropped off and haven't been heard from in months. For 3 others, we can't definitively say where they ended up. And 3 trackers were shipped to the other side of the world, to Southeast Asia.
4 years in a row now of historic flooding. The waters unable to recede.
This is a very common sight here after 4 years of relentless rains. This is a tiny piece of land completely surrounded by the waters here, an island in and of itself. And these are the families that have stayed behind to continue to raise their children here.
But what do they feed the children here with no land to farm on anymore? We are told the water lilies. And then we see her, a mother in the distance. The haunting sounds, the coughing, the quiet splashing in the water, the determined work in stagnant, dangerous floodwaters. The water nearly to her chest, reaching down to pull out the water lilies and their bulbs. This mother reaching down so far, she is nearly underwater herself. It is what they do for their children. And this mother who proudly shows the bulbs to us. They dry them and pound them into paste to feed them to their children.
Here from ABC News to accept the award for Trashed and the Power of Water, Seni Tinabaso for Trashed, and Ginger Z for the Power of Water. With a few words from my co-host, and now a new DuPont winner, David Muir.
I'm going to be very quick. Just a couple of quick thank yous for this, because you don't get the chance to work for a news division that assigns reporting on climate change to this scale unless you have a leader who truly believes it's the issue of our time. Kim Godwin, I know, is here. Our news president. Kim, thank you. I do want to give a quick thank you to Almin Karamedovic, my executive producer who travels with me after I say goodnight and we go to South Sudan. Esther Castillo, Columbia grad, is here too. Eric Knoll and Roy Garlisi, who are in the edit room tonight. I do want to say that, as we all know, the conversation about climate change for so long has been about the politics of climate change and the debate. And I would just urge everybody in this room, and it doesn't take me to urge you to do this because you recognize it, but coverage of the politics of climate change is not the same thing as reporting on climate change. I do believe that in traveling to South Sudan and around this country and sort of peeling back the layers to what is already happening helps to make this very real for people at home. When we did that story on the mothers who were getting water lilies for their children, not only were the people in this country moved, they acted. That was not our intention. They raised nearly $5 million for the World Food Program, which reminded us of not only of the power of what we do, that we can make a difference, but also that our viewers here in the US demand reporting on climate change. So thank you, Kim. I know Dana Walden's in town from Disney. Thank you for support all the way to the top. And if ever you wanted another signal that we mean business about climate change, it's not only do we have a chief meteorologist, but we have a chief climate editor, I believe the only network to have those titles. And so I'll turn it over to Ginger Z.
Our series was called The Power of Water, but within it, you witnessed the power of David Muir and his teams. Honestly, to see what you did with the World Food Program takes it to the next level. And I know that that wasn't the intent, but it was the result, and that's what matters, because the humanity of climate change is how we will tell this story. It's how we have to. But when you can then bring relief immediately, that is something special. So that was our goal, and I'm so proud, and a baton is so appropriate because dozens of my colleagues worked so hard on that very subject that I have been married to my existence, I think. I've loved weather and climate since I was 8 years old. But the story is getting more complex and more nuanced. I take it as a huge responsibility, and as do all of these people here on the stage, and so many more that aren't here tonight. I have to also say that without the guidance, the leadership, and the vision of Kim Godwin, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing now. You have to have that. Even if you've got all the pockets of interest and passion, like we always have, it's gotten different and it's gotten good. We have a lot coming up, and I can't wait to see what we do next. So there is one person who has always been by my side and very into the climate, like a committed climate friend, and that is Seni Tinabaso, the executive director of ABC News Live.
Thank you. Thank you. There is so much tumult and transformation in our industry, and as David was mentioning in the beginning, our world, that it's almost dizzying to keep track of it all. But our mission at ABC News Live has been simple, and it's one that thankfully has been championed by our biggest cheerleader and boss, Kim Godwin. It's, don't waste this real estate. Innovate and bring premium, impactful, original reporting to the streaming news space. And Trashed was part of that mission. But to be clear, we didn't set out at first to do the largest investigation into plastic recycling ever. We actually just wanted to know, when you drop that thing in a plastic bin, does it actually go where they say it goes? We are still unraveling the findings from our reporting. And when I say we, just like this project and all of the winners and finalists tonight, as the adage goes, it takes a village. So on behalf of myself, the incredible reporter Matt Gutman, who'd be here tonight if he wasn't once again reporting the conflict in Israel, my amazing co-executive producer on this project, Cindy Galley, the 9 ABC linear stations that worked with us, the legal and standards partners that guided us, and of course, the incredible, singular, wonderful producers of the I-Team, and the incredible, singular storytellers of ABC News Live. Thank you for these beautiful batons.
So now you know why I'm here, so they don't think David cheated, basically. I think he's got a future. You seem like an up and coming. Right. Congratulations, ABC. Now our next two DuPonts showcase visual forensic reporting. So in 2021, Colorado's Marshall Fire was the worst natural disaster in the state's history, burning more than 1,000 homes and killing 2 in Boulder County. In the months that followed, KUSA TV led an impressive effort to document the fire's destructive path, and they built a database of more than 1,000 individual pieces of media. Burned is an inventive examination of user-generated content, data analysis, and personal stories to better understand how a small and seemingly inconsequential fire exploded into a monster. So here's part of the minute-by-minute, location-by-location puzzle pieced together in Burned.
Okay, there we go. Here we go. Getting spicy.
Anybody home? Anybody home? Lutheran police! Anybody home?
Wow.
Anybody home?
Jesus.
Answer! Lutheran police! Anybody home?
The neighborhood's just gone.
36! Move now! Leave your stuff! Go! The fire's at the back! Go!
So weird. Fuck.
Everybody head east! Get out of the store now!
You know, it was a fire, but it was also like an act of insane Mother Nature. On a day like that, there was nothing you could do to stop it.
Go back! Go back! Go back!
Accepting the silver baton for KUSA's executive producer and editor, Chris Hansen.
Thank you. Every day, decisions are made in newsrooms across the country. On one day in January, we decided to do something that we had never done before. Amass a collection of more than 1,000 pieces of media from one day of the fire, and that was the only day that fire burned. Time-stamping and geotagging each one. Burned is, it's an urban firestorm unveiled in real time. I think one of the pieces I'm most proud of with this project is that researchers across the US, from Reno to Buffalo, are using this to help improve their models that can better predict how wildfires move in urban environments. This project was really built on a question: could we do this? Thankfully, 9 News and Tegna believed, yes, we could. Thank you.
When reporters from the New York Times visual investigation team entered Bucha, April 4th, 2022, of course, days after Russian forces abandoned that town, they discovered a slaughterhouse, a man dead beside his bicycle, a woman half buried in a garden, dozens of bodies strewn like tossed litter in a residential area on Yablunska Street. This began a meticulous investigation unlike any other to document what happened right there in Bucha, and for the first time, name the Russian unit and the commander responsible. Caught on camera, traced by phone, it's an 8-month-long inquiry that blends traditional investigative reporting with cutting-edge digital forensics. Their reconstructions of events are widely considered strong enough now for evidence to form the basis for a war crimes inquiry against Russia.
Throughout Russia's occupation of Bucha in March, various Russian units were encamped around the town. But the evidence we found overwhelmingly links one unit, the 234th, to the killings on Yablonska Street. On top of the commander call signs we heard earlier, rank-and-file soldiers from the unit took cell phones from these 2 checkpoint guards and used them to call home. In the case of this victim, Vitaly Karpenko, call logs we obtained from the Ukrainian authorities show that his phone made 8 calls to Russia. The first was placed within 6 hours of his execution. To identify the Russian soldier who made this call, we took the number in Russia that he dialed and found a social media profile linked to it. We searched the profile for relatives who were men of military age and found the soldier. We also called the number that the soldier dialed and spoke to a relative who confirmed his name and unit. Vladimir Vasilyev, a member of the 234th. Vladimir also used the phone of another checkpoint guard, Ivan Skiba. Ivan's phone was passed around to at least 15 other soldiers, and one after the other, they made 38 calls to Russia. We have confirmed that most of these soldiers were in the same unit, the 234th.
Please welcome from the visual investigative team, Yusur Alu from the New York Times.
Good evening, everyone. Our months-long reporting in Bucha was possible because of the brave residents who risked their lives to document the horror that unfolded outside their homes. Because of the generosity of those residents to open their doors and their hearts to the New York Times, and because of a few Ukrainian officials who were willing to lose their jobs to leak sensitive material that proved how Russian soldiers unleashed horror on the town. This award belongs to them. And it belongs to my colleagues who are sharing this stage with me: Masha Froliak, Haley Willis, Christoph Kettle, Dimitri Kovin, Malaki Brown, Alex Cardia, Natalie Runeau, Ishan Javeri, and many others who collaborated with us over 8 months. That's the team you need to do this kind of work. But as we stand here in celebration, our colleagues across the world are suffering. Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich remains unjustly detained in Russia, and our Palestinian colleagues in Gaza are trapped in the bombardment they're forced to document, sometimes only to find their own children under the rubble. 83 journalists and media workers have been killed in the Israel-Gaza war, most of whom are Palestinians killed by the IDF, according to the Committee to Protect Journalists. They include Muntasser As-Sawaf, a friend and a cameraman, Rushdie Sarraj, a talented filmmaker, Bilal Jaddallah, director of the Palestine Press House. But what if Evan, or Muntasar, or Rushdie, or Bilal, or Shireen Abu Akleh were you and me? What if we were the journalists at risk of death every day? What would we do, and what would we demand of our industry? And are we prepared to answer this question? Are we failing to protect our colleagues, and in turn, failing to protect ourselves? Thank you.
For the last of our 2024 finalists this year, an intimate family portrait of assisted suicide, scrutiny of a prolific church whose members tell of rampant sexual abuse, a historical perspective/love letter to our national parks in this country, a sensitive year-long chronicle of life in Uvalde after the mass shooting there, and how one indigenous group in the Amazon rainforest policed their land to safeguard their own environment.
O senhor está preso até nós chamar os órgãos responsáveis. A gente vai te manter aqui. Tipo, a gente não vai te machucar, cara. A gente não vai fazer nada. A gente só está usando arco e flecha por causa que é nosso trabalho e nós estamos monitorando. Posso ver sua mochila? Não, pode ver. Por causa que é de rotina mesmo. Todo mundo sabe o que é uma terra indígena.
I want you to think about all we've been through. And I'm talking about everything. I'm talking about from a coaching change to the pandemic to the tragedy. You guys have been an inspiration to me, never seen. I've been doing this a long time. Now it is your turn to go out and be an inspiration to your team. Understood? Yes, take care of your business. Let's go kick some ass. Ready? Go!
I've seen 300-foot flame lengths in giant sequoia forests, and the trees are 250 feet tall. So there's flames that are 50 feet taller than the tree, and they just cannot survive that. They just get reduced to matchsticks.
It's really interesting how they detect the right person. You have to be poor and you have to be broken for you to need somebody who's telling you that he has all the answers in the world.
Daddy, you're really lucky to live in California. Yep. If you were in New York with Rachel, you wouldn't have this option right now.
That's right. And Daddy, we have to do it legally or we all go to jail. You don't want that.
No, I don't want you in jail. I just want to be in the ground.
PBS 20 Days in Mariupol. Our last DuPont Award of the evening is the feature-length documentary, which was a collaboration between Frontline PBS and the Associated Press. Now, this is an unparalleled first-person account inside the Russian siege of Mariupol in Ukraine. A three-person team from the AP was the last group of international reporters to remain as the city was surrounded by Russian troops, cutting off external contact. So the reporters risked their lives to document what would become some of the defining images of the war. The film captures scenes of horrifying and quotidian detail, which were then smuggled out under fire for timely worldwide distribution. The reporters went on to create this beautiful and horrifying documentary with its images of the aftermath of a maternal hospital bombing.
Все нормально, все хорошо. А где она, блядь, я не знаю. Куда вы хотите? Вопрос только в маме. Куда? Вывели, куда дальше? Куда садиться? Машины не целые!
Девочки, потихоньку выходите. Ногами идите, все полетело. Мама, что?
Все.
Заходите. Тихо. Спокойно. Без паники. Осторожно. Вниз. Без паники. Аккуратно.
Выше, поднимите, выше.
Маму дай, сказал. Туда несем. Держись, сыграй.
And yet, even their suffering has been questioned, with Russian officials claiming on Twitter and in news programs that they must be actors.
Это так называемые фейковые новости и постановочные фото- и видеосъемки. Последняя такая подделка из Мариуполя.
This maternity hospital had already been seized by the Azov battalion and other radicals. All the pregnant women, all the nurses, all the service personnel were already expelled from there.
Якобы имевшая место авиаудар полностью режиссированная провокация.
Больницу превратили в съемочную площадку, пригласили статистов и актеров.
Accepting the silver baton for the AP and Frontline PBS, the film's director, AP journalist, Mstiaslav Chernov.
Months ago, we finally found the family of the boy who you saw on the screen, the one who was looking for his mom. She was heavily injured, along with his dad. Her face pierced with shrapnel, and she was taken away. And it took months until this family reunited in Europe. And they saw the film, and they thanked us, and they said they found a lot of hope. And I didn't understand why they said that in the beginning, but then they said when this all happened, they were not alone. They were surrounded by people, by community that helped them. And also they felt that in spite that Mariupol was surrounded and cut off from the world by information siege, they were heard and their tragedy was seen. And I looked through all the great journalists that were on this stage, and I've seen their stories, and it touched me deeply, everything I saw, and I feel that we live in of course, it's a personal perspective of a person whose hometown was bombed yesterday and before yesterday and before yesterday. I feel that we live in a horrible world. That's the truth. But somehow I also feel that we have at least hope to change it with our work, at least to try. And the war journalism started for me 10 years ago. Since then, I have been through 6 wars. I've seen countless tragedies. I cannot count dead bodies or dead children I've seen. But, sorry, it was a long day. It was a really long day. I stopped believing. I stopped believing in journalism. That's the truth. I stopped. And when I was in Mariupol, and when we filmed the bombing of maternity hospital, and the policeman, Ukrainian policeman Vladimir, came to me and said, "Well, film this. This is going to change everything. This is going to stop the war." And I said, "Look, of course we'll film. We'll do everything possible to send it. This is not going to change anything." And honestly, things got worse. Things got worse. And I don't know what to do with that. Honestly, I don't know what to do with that. But there is still something. You see, I'm standing here on the stage and I'm trying to find hope. Yeah, in you in your work, in thoughts about the team that is right now working in Ukraine. But I saw people who ran towards us across the street that was bombed by Russian bombs, and they saw press sign on the helmet, and they grabbed me and they said, "Does Ukraine still exist as a country? Can you film me so my relatives can find me? Can you please tell to the world what is happening?" And in a few days that there was no information in Mariupol because it was cut off, the society collapsed completely. I've never seen anything like that. The modern society cut off from the information, the modern society cut off from all the journalism, all the connection just collapses. I found an understanding and a hope in journalism again, because I saw how it's really needed for the people to be connected. And sometimes it's more important than food and water, the information that I hope, and what we do is part of that process. So yes, I cannot stop the bullet with my camera, I cannot stop catastrophic bleeding with my lens, I cannot stop Russian bomb falling and killing of the child, but at least I'll keep trying, and we all will keep trying, and I thank you for not giving up. Thank you for that.
I want to say for myself, for David, for the honorees here, thank you for joining us, for watching with us, for honoring journalism at its finest. And congratulations to all of tonight's winners, to all the journalists, wherever you are, working under fire, working under pressure, sometimes working unrecognized, who bring truth to light. So again, thanks. We appreciate you. See you for more great reporting next year. And for the 82nd DuPont-Columbia Awards, please have a good night.